Hello, I am Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was a fighter who was always trying to find a way to get us through tough times and to make things better for us. I once said, I pledge to you, I pledge to myself, to a new deal for the American people. My much disciplined early life helped me receive a fantastic education, which helped me get jobs, getting me one step closer to becoming our 32nd president. I was one of the greatest presidents in American history. I had a very wonderful childhood. I was born January 30th, 1882, and grew up in Hyde Park, New York. At the age of 5, my father took me to see the White House, where President Grover Cleveland told me that he hoped I would never become president. During most of my childhood, I was surrounded usually by adults, and played with children and younger cousins rarely. For me, my family was absolutely wonderful. My father, James Roosevelt, was a wealthy landowner and railroad vice president, and was also a diplomat under President Cleveland. My mother, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, kept me looking girly by keeping me in long curls past babyhood and making me wear kilts until the age of 8. She had a schedule for my daily activities, but I learned to charm her into getting what I wanted. The Roosevelt generation first arrived here in North America in 1649 as early Dutch settlers. We were merchants traveling on the ship Fortune. Thankfully, I received a great education throughout the years. My early teachings came from many governesses who taught me penmanship, arithmetic, Latin, French, and German. Later, I enrolled in Groton School in Groton, Massachusetts. There were 110 boys. Each had to share a room, and we only had a curtain for a door. And we were each responsible for keeping it clean. Although I could not find many friends, I sang in the choir, did plays, learned to debate, and while I was really bad at sports, I did college football, while still maintaining a C average. Soon after, in 1900, I entered Harvard College, where I was the secretary of the Glee Club. But soon after I was Harvard, my father died. But I met one of my cousins. Soon after schooling, I transitioned to get many jobs. I first ran as a Democrat for New York State Senator in 1910. I beat my Republican opponent 14,568 to 1,708. I then joined other Democratic reformers in supporting Woodrow Wilson for president. I led a demonstration for Wilson, who later became president, which meant I was on the ballot to regain election, but I got typhoid fever early in the campaign season and was bedridden. Lucky for me, though, Lewis Howe was engaged to direct the campaign by organizing clubs, touring in my car, buying newspaper ads, and sending out mailings in the candidate's name. I won by 1,600 votes, and Lewis Howe became a permanent member of my inner circle. I then got a job as Assistant Secretary of Navy, and was appointed by President Wilson April 1913, so I resigned from the state Senate. I worked under Secretary of State Josephus Daniels, also a leading New York Democrat, and was responsible for the operation of U.S. Navy yards, negligation labor contacts with civilian workers, and purchasing naval supplies. And when war broke out, I was responsible for building a better Navy. I said, we must create a Navy not only to protect our shores and possessions, but our merchant ships in time of war, no matter where you might go. I also found new laws to help the Navy. Fortunately, I grew a family to love and support me throughout my journey. Remember that cousin I met at Harvard? Well, I went on to marry Eleanor Roosevelt March 17, 1905, and went on to grow a beautiful family. Baby Anna was born in 1906. Then Franklin, who was born March 1909, but sadly died in November of that year. But next came Elliot, born in 1910, and lastly was Franklin Jr. in 1916. My road to the White House went rather smoothly. The first step was the campaign. During my first term, I ran with John Nance Garner, but also ran against him at first with Hoover and Al Smith. For the second term, I ran against Alfred Landon, who was a Republican and the governor of the state of Kansas. Finally, for my third term, I ran against Wendell Willkie, who was also a Republican. The next step is election. For my first term, I was elected November of 1932. I had 22.8 votes. Hoover had 15.8, and I won 42 out of 48 states. For my second term, I won 61% of the popular vote and won every single state but Vermont and Massachusetts. And for my third election, it was 27 million to 22 million and 449 to 82 electoral votes. The last step is to be inaugurated. For my first term, I was inaugurated March 4th, 1933, during the Great Depression. I was inaugurated the 32nd president. On January 20th, 1937, the first president to be inaugurated on the new date, I was in for a second term. Some accomplishments were that I was the first and only president to serve for 4 terms. I led us through the Great Depression. I made a law that judges had to require at the age of 70 because I didn't want to be in a room full of old people. And during the Holocaust, I was concerned we were isolated. So I challenged people by giving speeches. I, the 32nd president, have many interesting facts. I died April 12th, 1945, at the age of 63 from cerebral hemorrhage. I was buried in the family plot in Hyde Park, New York. Harry Truman took the seat for me after my death. Some more interesting facts are that my cousin Theodore inspired me. I was the father of the Democratic Party, and I got to meet Shirley Temple. As you can see, I was one of the greatest presidents to ever serve our country. From childhood to going to college, I have had a very wonderful family and have been the first and only president to serve 4 terms. Living in a wealthy but strict environment growing up has helped me become the 32nd president of the United States.